Blog Talk Radio.
Please take all the necessary precautions to protect your Constitution while listening to this broadcast.
3, 2, 1. Coming to you live via the internet. It's time for Rage Against the Regime.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Finally, a show for patriots, defending the Constitution and uncovering the truth at every turn, bringing you exclusive interviews and covering the topics the mainstream media doesn't dare to touch. Call in and join the discussion at 929-477-3565. That's 929-477-3565. And now, here are your hosts, Bobby Who's the Man and Becky Williams. Rage Against the Regime.
I'm the man, I'm the man, I'm the man. Yes, I am, yes, I am, yes, I am. I'm the man, I'm the man, I'm the man.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Rage Against the Regime podcast. I'm your host, Becky Williams, and I am joined at this moment by Bobby Ritter. Welcome, welcome.
Hello,
brother. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you doing, sis?
Oh, man, I'm doing great, but on an emotional scale, I'm up and down. Brother, we have so much going on. That's the reason I went ahead and did this emergency broadcast. We didn't really have anything scheduled today. I appreciate you taking time to come and join me today to get our show up and running. Thank you so much, brother. Couple of things are going on here, and I don't think the public has really gotten a grasp of exactly the depth of danger that is being imposed upon the people. I see a lot of things, especially in the last 3 weeks, events and situations that are meant to get the entire population in America, based on moral values, fighting against one another with a lot of hatred. What do you think? What do you think is going on here?
Well, I think that racially, I'm not even going to use the word racially. I'm just going to say diversity. The government is doing a great job of splitting the country into little groups. And what they're doing is they're saying, okay, they're throwing something out there. Take, for instance, the equality flag, okay? They throw it out there and say, okay, who's in support of this? All the people that are in support of this, post something on your Facebook page, raise your hand, talk about it, argue with people that don't believe in it, whatever. Then they go away from that. Okay, here, we got a Confederate flag. Who supports this thing? Raise your hand. Post it on your page. Do this, do that. Okay, first thing that they're trying to do is they're trying to figure out who belongs to what group. Okay? Secondly, what they're trying to do is they're trying to start a civil war amongst the people. Anybody that can't see that, you are blind as a bat. Okay? What they're trying to do is they're trying to figure out who is who and who belongs to what group so they can use it against you later on. Okay? So, I'm sorry. Holy cow. Sorry about that. With that being said, it's like, you sit there and, everybody wants to stand up for what you believe in, okay? But don't make them start the war, okay? There's so many other things that we could be fighting about and fighting for right now, and we're not. We're not doing our job as patriots and as Americans and everything else to do the right thing. Here, take for instance, in New York yesterday, you saw the same videos I saw that we posted on page and everything else. That was a group of Americans that came forward. There was a group that said, oh, we're going out to this park and we're going to go burn the American flag and this and that and whatever, and blah, blah, blah. So they were trying to get a raise out of people, which they did. And, they were trying to accomplish something at the same time, which, everybody has a free, they have the right to, the right to speak of what they want to speak about and so on and so forth. But to me, there is nobody that should be able to burn the American flag. I don't give a good damn who you are, where you're from, where you come from, or anything else, and I don't care what your message is. Okay? I have a zero tolerance for anybody trying to burn the American flag. Okay? And I will not budge on that. Okay? And any of these young kids that think that they're making a statement, oh, I'm going to go burn the American flag, and I'm gonna make a statement and this and that. They think that their message is a good message. It's not. Okay? They're adding on to the problems that we already have in this country, and they're helping groups that they don't even realize that they're helping. Groups like, they hate groups like Farrakhan's little group and, whatever. I mean, we can name a million groups and a million different leaders and everything else. They all have the same agenda, okay? And we need to push away from that. We need to stand up as people and say we're not going to take this anymore. I don't care who you are. I don't care, what your goofy beliefs are, because if this country is so damn bad and the American flag offends you or the Confederate flag offends you or whatever, get stuff out of my country. Okay?
Yeah.
Because I have no
Bobby,
use for you here. Yes, ma'am.
Bobby, we've got Doug McDougall. I've opened his mic. Welcome, Doug, to the
Okay.
show. And I also
have
Bill as well. Bill D is on the phone.
Okay.
Good
in.
brothers, man.
Hello. Welcome aboard, guys.
How's everybody doing?
Wow, Doug.
Pretty well.
I'm doing good, man. I'm a little bit distraught, and I don't think people have caught on exactly to what's going on because they're too focused on their tunnel vision, their own personal beliefs or morals. They feel very impassioned by the things that are going on. For instance, you got Christians now against the gays over the gay marriage issue. You've got infighting there. You've got infighting with the blacks and the whites. You got the Hispanics sitting back and laughing, saying we're going to take this country back and we have every right to be here and take what we want. It was ours to begin with, and now you've got the infighting with the churches with this last incident in Charleston. Now you've got some asshat artists who did a depiction with gay men putting the gay flag in the ground like those who raised the flag at, what was that, Iwo Jima, or what was that, Bunker Hill, or wherever it is. Okay, so now, there you go, Iwo Jima. And now you have these little commie bastards coming out of the colleges, for lack of better terminology. I apologize there for the language, guys, but I'm very irritated because what they have managed to do with their Alinsky move is to put the entire population, based on their own personal beliefs, they punched the button, if you will, to cause infighting. Now they have accomplished it amongst every individual group in America, whether it be by race, by your Christian beliefs, atheists, communists, foreign invaders, the black on white. And now they pissed off the veterans in the military with this artist picture that I assure you was put out there for that very purpose. What are you guys thinking on this? Doug, I'll go with you first.
Hey, Becky. Folks, you know what Saul Alinsky would say right now if he could look at the White House and advise them? He would say, folks, what you've got here is a pretty decent start, but you still got 15 months. So y'all don't let off the pedal. I want you to keep going. Listen, folks, this is just the start. What you're going to see is another impact and another impact and another impact. Whatever it is, they are going to throw it out there. The media that is what it is, the freaking right hand of the administration is going to take their marching orders from the administration, and they're going to feed everything. If we got a presidential election coming up, and you think that's going to be the news, it's not going to be the news. You're going to get 2 minutes of this, and you're going to get 15 minutes of riot and uprisings in these small communities over these issues, whether it be polygamy is they've already filed charges to try and get a polygamy license up in Montana. Suit has already been filed. Folks, this is all a part and all by design. They are reading the book page for page on how to do this. They got a little late start because they've been trying to get the people with Ferguson and Baltimore. These places have tried. Even go back as far as Trayvon Martin and the issues there, and they have tried and tried to get us to rise up. But what they're experiencing is the same thing that those of us conservatives out there that have been in this fight for the last 8 years have experienced. We have a lot of keyboard commandos. We can't get anybody off their duff to do anything. But guess what? Unless the White House is paying protesters to show up, they can't even get on their side. The American populace has become lethargic, lazy, self-centered. If it doesn't affect them, they do not care about it. If the things that created this country, the things that are great about this country, the freedom and the liberty that is handed to every person, rich, poor, doesn't matter, that it goes across equally. Liberty doesn't know a difference between a poor and a rich man. Liberty is liberty in itself. These people don't realize sitting on their cuffs what is about to go down in America. Every second, this TPP was a complete handover of Congress's rights to debate a trade agreement that was written in our Constitution. I think it's in the First Amendment.
It's worse than that.
Page 18 or something, handed every bit of rights over to the UN eventually. The UN will dispute any argument that we have over a trade agreement. And I don't care if it has to do with you buying a gallon of milk or you selling you grow up 100 acres of watermelon. You can't sell those watermelons, not unless the UN agrees on how and equally you can do it. We have handed over the sovereignty of our nation.
It's a surrender treaty.
We have backed away from the Constitution because they have painted it in such a perfect way. They have worked on the stupidity of the American people, and yes, I will call them stupid. They have worked on the stupidity of the American people. They have used our Constitution to work against us. Listen, people, if we don't stay as a God-loving and a God-fearing nation, they will take our rights, our religious freedom rights, and they will use them against us. They will. Why, if people have the religious right not to issue a license to a gay couple, and it states in our Constitution that person has that right, and I think that person does have that right. Okay, then why doesn't another religion have the right to mutilate their 5-year-old daughter in a female mutilation deal, removing her clitoris so she can't have her pleasure in sex later in life? Why can't you have stonings for adultery? That's in their religious belief. Folks, well, you have to watch out what you want. You want to back away from God? Guess what? You will see the wrath of God. You will see a very, very angry God. People, we need to wake up. We need to take careful steps. We need to keep the idiots out of the administration like we have right now. These people are sick. They are vile. They don't care about single soul in themselves. They're self-egotistical, worthless people. A dog feels me getting upset. So I'll let somebody else talk.
Bill?
Recognized that I was upset.
Oh, yeah. Bill?
Becky, go ahead for a second. I'm trying to send you something to have. Hang on.
All right.
So go ahead. Go ahead and say what you need.
You know, all I can say is you're spot on with everything that you just said, Doug. I'm outraged by what is going on and that we are so easily led. See, we're controlled by our emotions rather than allowing our discernment to dictate our reaction.
Because they have no emotions. They have no emotions. They have no morals. Listen, without God, how do you define right and wrong? How do you say that pedophilia is wrong without God? How do you say that murder isn't wrong without God?
You're correct. You're correct.
How does all of this exist without God? Well, when you put people in power that are absent that of God, then you will go into a very dark place, and that is where America is headed. You cannot have this freedom and this liberty that we call America and this beautiful life that we have all strived to have, being a part of or the center of. We have no right to do this. And I'm telling you now, we will see a very, very angry God.
Yeah, I believe so too. Bobby, are you still with us, brother? I know you're short on time today. I called the show a little bit late, and I know you have family after hours.
I'm here. It's good. It's good. The thing that I really kind of wanted to touch on, and I apologize if you guys hear the background noise. I'm in my wife's car, and it makes too much boom noise, probably very windy. So that's why I'm going to try to talk as fast as I can and get away from it. You know, the problem that I have right now, the biggest problem, is them doing away with the Ten Commandments, doing away with all of these things that we grew up with and we've known to be monuments that we adored. You know, they stood for something. People died for these monuments. They've died for these flags. They've died for a lot of things that, people are coming along and saying, oh, that offends me, so, you got to do away with it, this and that, and whatever. And to me, it really pisses me off because most of the people that are saying that it offends them aren't even from this country. So why do they have to say in anything that goes on in this country? I don't know. Okay? So that right there should tell us all there is a changing of the guard. Okay? And as we know it, the Muslim Brotherhood is in the White House. Okay? Many, many generals, colonels, admirals have come forward that are no longer part of the military and have stated that the Muslim Brotherhood has pretty much infected and has worked its way into the White House and into different parts of the military and different parts of our government. Okay? And, we're in for something really big right now. I have no idea what the final outcome is going to be, but I'm hoping that the people stand up and raise holy hell about it. Look, the Black Panther Party and the groups, Farrakhan and all the others, Shabazz and all these other groups, on July 16th and 17th are going to be in South Carolina because they're going to go there and they're going to raise holy hell and they're wanting some kind of monument taken down. Okay? Besides the Confederate flag, they want a monument taken down and they also want Confederate avenues taken down. Then, on October 10th in Washington, D.C., Farrakhan is leading his people to Washington, D.C. because they want to have the American flag removed. And they want to take it down. If this does not outrage you people, and the people do not stand up and do something about this, okay, because this is everything that we stand for. If people do not stand up and do something about this, we are gone, okay, as a society, as a people. we are gone, okay? Because the United States flag is what we are united upon, okay? That's why we do the Pledge of Allegiance, okay? That's why we stand, and remove our hats with the Star-Spangled Banner and so on and so forth. People have died for that flag, okay? And I guarantee you, we are not going to see the kind of people standing up and seeing the numbers that we need to see standing up for that flag when them idiots come to take it down. And you know what? And if that happens, we might as well stop doing everything that we're doing. We might as well not stand up for any beliefs any longer. And we may as well tell them, you know what? It's your country, do as you must. Because the people will not stand for anything else. And they're not going to protect anything. So that's pretty much what I have to say about that.
You're watching a microcosm of it right now, and that the people of Greece, and I'll give you this, Greece does not, and the people of Greece do not understand liberty, and they do not understand what America understands as liberty, okay? We're watching. They are finally standing up and going, all right, we'll take less. Let's fix this, But they've been disputing it and saying, no. We want perfect life, but we don't want to do anything for it. Guess what? That Constitution requires something as an American citizen. It requires you to protect that Constitution as an American citizen. You have to be vigilant. You have to watch the powers that be. You have to vote. You have to get involved in your community so that your children in 4th grade ain't taught about freaking oral sex. You cannot. There are two things in the world that nobody can alter or change, and that is light and darkness, okay? America was a place of light. It was beaming of light. Every person in every country wanted to come to America. Right now, America is being swarmed with a darkness that is killing light. You cannot have both in the same area. You can't have light and darkness, okay? Darkness will overwhelm the light. You cannot have it. And right now, we are being overwhelmed with this darkness. Becky,
Well,
there?
I'll tell you, I'm still here. I'll tell you.
No, I'm here too. I was
for
waiting
free.
for somebody else to say something.
Yeah, I'll tell you for free. We have been controlled right into the mouth of the beast, and from taxation, enslavement. Now they're saying, Obama already said he didn't like our Constitution, and he felt it was antiquated to some degree, and it needed to be changed. And he has taken it upon himself, and so has the Supreme Court justice, who are actually placed by the corrupt government. The POTUS is who actually puts those folks in position. We're not standing up. They're tearing the very fiber of this country. They're ripping us like a piece of paper being shredded by an individual who is enraged with anger and doesn't want to read the document. They want to now, Farrakhan and his Negro kittens want to go into Washington on October 10th and demand the American flag be removed. We're seeing it burned on campuses. We're seeing black professors, not one but two in the last week, in some of our most elite colleges, screaming racial slurs at white people, white males, white people. We hear Shabazz, the head of the Black Panthers, he's out there roaming the streets talking about killing all the whites and killing the babies, the white babies, and nobody's doing anything. And now what you have is you've got the black idiots, because not all black people are stupid like this, but you have the ghetto rugrats, the pavement apes that are out there crawling the streets, wreaking havoc on America, being more and more emboldened because they now know that they have the complete go-ahead by the government, who pays a lot of these people to do what they're doing, like in Ferguson and Baltimore and New York and across the country, with Al Sharpton and his Action Network group that he's got going on, with them taking hands with the Muslim Brotherhood and forming a coalition across the board, they're attacking America. And now they're executing policemen. Listen, Obama doesn't go speak at any of these police officers' funerals. He doesn't even send a representative. But he'll show up at a thug who tried to take a Cobb's life funeral, or he'll send somebody to attend to represent the White House. We're in deep poo-poo because now the police are reaching the point in some cities where, you know, they've screamed black and racial profiling so much so in executing the cops, and if the cop does his job, he loses his job concerning the arrest or apprehension of a black individual. That's all you hear about on the media. You don't hear about the black cops.
Nobody has any backbone. Nobody has any backbone. They will not stand up against it. They will not stand up against it.
Listen, we've got to find a backbone, people, because they have now got everybody infighting, which guarantees that we cannot organize to handle the situation that needs to be handled. That's the end game plan, Bob. You said you're waiting for something big. It's already happened. Everybody says they're waiting for the first shot to be fired. Thousands of shots are fired at us every day. They're waiting for the war to start. We're already at war.
Yeah, we just got to quit being distracted by all the bullshit. You know, we have a base, a ground of fact, and that's all we have to stick with. This racial thing, even to get off on it for a moment, is a complete distraction. It's a complete depletion of energy towards what we need to resolve, and they know this. It's no strange coincidence that the Confederate flag is involved with what's happening right now. It has nothing to do with racism and all these things that we've talked about, or the individuals who first showed the Confederate flag in its present form in the world, or the words that they felt about racism and slavery and all of that. Same with Lincoln. If you look historically to the statements of those people, when they occurred, what actually occurred, and what's being hidden, it makes a lot of sense. The other gentleman had brought up these trade treaties, that they're treaties of surrender. He was pretty clear on that. I don't really need to add to it. I don't. But it is a very large-scale version of exactly what was happening from the North and through that Esquire principal who became president, Lincoln, what they tried to impose on the southern states, which is why that battle flag that originated in Virginia under Robert E. Lee became a battle flag that represented the Confederates for the free independence that this republic was originally established for, against the tyranny that was flooded over them by the North and by this national government, which became a federal government, or a feudal one, which is 180 degrees opposite of what the founding one was supposed to be, but that was the plan. Obviously, they created a fake emancipation so many years later, and at the end of a civil war, that all it did was lead into a transfer of property, which happened to be human beings. Unfortunately, most of the original property was considered the black human beings, some of them slaves, but it didn't really matter so much. And then they basically, with that 14th Amendment, tried to roll everybody into accepting themselves as United States property. But the point is that all of these disguises and all these distractions, it just has to stop. We are seeing a group of people going a step further now. They are literally, as the other gentleman had said, selling us over or handing us over on treaties, surrender treaties, to whatever's behind the United Nations, whoever they front for, and it's happening now. This whole thing about gays getting married and this, how does it impose on your rights, this, that, and the other thing, this religious thing and this war, that's all a bunch of bullshit too. And that's not what's really happening. And they would like us to fight at that level. But what is happening is that beyond that, they go to the point that says that, well, not only does everybody get to do what they want to do or have the same right as somebody else, what it means and what it establishes, if you read any of the language and you look at the precedents, is that it goes into any business, any church, and any home and says that you have to comply by that minority preference. And that's just the way it is, or you're done and down. Now, the way I look at America, especially with the First Amendment, you don't even need to get into the rest, is we have a right of association. We pick those people we choose and desire to associate with. And, leading through the rest of that, it's part of our will and pleasure in life and our sovereign, unalienable rights. But also, you have the right to refuse anyone. It's how people sink or swim in a free economy anyway. If you want to be so prejudiced or blatant in disregard for other people, that can actually hurt your business. You might have a tight little knit group of friends, but you better hope that's enough to float your boat, because otherwise you're going to be out of business. At the same time, it's an opportunity of like-minded people. They don't have to, is it the point to be married? I got to ask. Now, I'm not talking about the individuals getting married so much as the interest group behind them that wants to create separation. Is the bigger point for them to get married? Or is the bigger point for them to go force their marriage into churches that object to it? That's a big, important question, because there will be churches that will be shut down. There will be businesses that will be shut down. Now, this family who were devoutly religious by their own beliefs, if it doesn't suit your belief or it's not like your belief, so freaking what? It doesn't have to. It is theirs. It is part of their core person. It's what is to be protected in America. They didn't believe that they should, owning a pastry shop, be forced to make a wedding for a gay couple's wedding. It doesn't sound like a big deal. And really it shouldn't be. They should have the right to refuse anybody's anything, period. Now, if it's such a big deal, it was also a business opportunity that somebody can go out and say, and they can refuse to make cakes for anybody else, we are going to make the best cakes in the world specifically and only for same-sex marriages or unions or whatever. Well, good for them. This whole thing about everybody having the right to do and perform everything doesn't trump the original rights, the unalienable rights of association and the right to accept or refuse anything as you see fit and choose. It doesn't mean you deny somebody their rights. It just means that you're not participating in their endeavor or their rights. Now, if it comes to the government or somebody as a public service denying somebody, well, then there's trouble. There's a problem. But when it comes to us above government, we have a fucking right to do any damn thing we please as long as it doesn't hurt somebody or damage them. And nowhere in any documents does it say you have a right not to have your feelings hurt. Your person, your body, and your stuff, sure. But your feelings, hey, if that's really a big issue, get some damn counseling. The economy for those people could probably use a boost also. But,
you talked about something, Bill. You talked about kind of the Confederate flag kind of being like a racial type thing. And,
it's not a racial thing at all.
It's exactly the opposite of that. No, I understand. I'm not saying it is. I mean, you mentioned race in Confederate, but the point that I'm trying to get at, so many people do not realize how many black people also died for that Confederate flag. So many people say,
why they did.
And it's a white power thing. It's this, it's that. People, you have no clue what you're talking about. As many black people died for that flag as white people. Okay, it's not that the flag's nothing to do with race. And then the second thing that I wanted to mention, they're not talking about, you got all these Shabbos and, you got Farrakhan and this one and that one talking about kill Whitey. Whitey's trying to kill us and this and that. Why aren't they talking about the true issue, which is black-on-black crime?
But even that's another distraction. I think that, Bobby, you have to admit, we're at that point now where we can't afford any of these things anymore. We have to resolve the cause, because all the trouble that all these things are creating, all of these falsehoods, these facades, we can't afford it now because we're going down in a bad way.
Well,
these are not issues when they're not being used. They're being used right now, but they're not issues.
Right. Well, any weekend, if you look at the numbers of murders here in Chicago, we're number one in the nation, and I'm not laughing because I'm happy about it. It's sad. But if you look at the numbers, okay, say this past weekend 40 people got murdered, okay? I bet you 38 out of the 40 is a black-on-black crime. And I'm not exaggerating. I'm being serious. This is people fighting over drugs, drug territory, gang violence. It's all black-on-black. And they don't talk about that. They don't find that to be the issue. They would rather pinpoint Whitey and say crackers the problem. And I'm not saying that to be derogatory. I'm using their words. This is from their videos and stuff.
Hey, Bobby, I live in a state where all of this stuff that you guys are starting to experience, in some cases for the last 20 years or so in some of your cities, it originated here. We had the worst gang violence, black on black or whatever on whatever. The biggest black and Mexican gangs that this world has seen, period. And they've all, franchising their business, gone into all the other states and cities. And they thrive in these states where the Constitution has either ceased to exist or is so shadowed that it might as well not be there at all. And that's what my point is that these problems, they'll get resolved if we resolve the core problem, the cause of it, and we can right this shit. I mean, there's a lot of problems, but most of them will fix themselves. People really want to get along together. People really don't have this. There's a few, and hey, I know you're out there. You don't need me to agree with you, and I don't need you to agree with me. But for the most part, there's not much of a problem between us as races. There shouldn't be any at all. But I know that there's some hardships and hard feelings because there's people out there still doing hard things. But that'll resolve itself when we can right our ship and we take the bullshit game playing out of this whole thing. If suddenly we own our own money anymore, there's not going to be a financial hardship on a whole nation. If suddenly we don't have special interest groups forcing their way on other people and you can be how and who you want, we're not going to have these other problems with people feeling like their rights are being pressed while other people think that they're finally getting theirs. And the other thing is when we can have that constitutional environment that we live in, we won't have any gun-free zones, and you won't have this whoever on whoever rampant killing without consequence. Blacks live around blacks more because they choose to, or in some cases because economically, unfortunately, it's just the way it's circumstanced. But in areas where there is a heavy concealed and open carry, you have less of everyone killing themselves in front of everybody else because
I think Doug
it just
wanted
doesn't
to
work
say
out for
something.
them.
I think Doug wanted to say something. Go ahead, brother.
Hey, listen, folks. Okay, we're doing exactly right here. We're picking issues and we're discussing issues and the rights and wrongs and the reality of issues. Okay, and we know this. We know that black on black crime is big. We know that this is going on. We know that the Confederate flag really has nothing to do with any issue going on in America, right? It's every bit of it. Okay, so we're sitting here doing this. Listen, we know that the Saudi king paid for most of Barack's education at Harvard. We know that he is a usurper in the White House right now. Okay, we
remove him. It's time.
Well, listen, it's bigger than him. He is just a puppet in a big scheme of things that has went on from the time that we all became slaves of or property of the American, or slaves.
Well, but that's the point, though, isn't it? Is that we get rid of that whole thing. That's the cause I keep talking about. If we resolve the cause and restore a constitutional republic, these problems go away. These investments of these foreign princes, kings, and whoever the hell else, I could care what they are. Ooh, they're the Illuminati. I could give a shit, really. I could care less. Honest to God, I swear I don't care who they are or what mask they wear. Ooh, that's a scary one. No, it's not. Get them the hell out. End them. End them. Confiscate their everything and put it into a reformed treasury. We can start getting some of our treasures back or our treasury full. Eliminate all the debt from them. I mean, get rid of them entirely, including their illusion. We, as Americans, don't owe a damn penny to anyone. These criminals made deals with criminals from other nations and so on and so forth. We didn't. We were subject and forced via pressure and other things under them. And we are the greatest victims. We are the house that's been home invaded. Now, they may have been using our bank account and dialing out and wire transferring to the world from our home, but we've been prisoners within it. It's time to get out and get rid of them and take everything back and not be subject to any of their crimes.
Let me ask you guys a question. Let me ask you guys a question because you're educated on it. What happened when they threw the 13th Amendment out and they added the 14th Amendment? And then the 50s, and then the 60s.
Well, these law crafters were allowed to do the things that they did, starting with the replacement 13th and the 14th going forward. None of those things should have been allowed to be crafted, and the statutes that came from the sea ended up landing on the land where they never belonged. Everything changed from that point going forward.
Think about this. What the SCOTUS just did to America, they used the 14th Amendment to do it. And the implications and the probability that we're going to see a whole lot of trouble out of what was just passed using the 14th Amendment and manipulating law is going to cause a whole shitstorm of other issues at the end of the day. We already know that because it set precedents. Now, so they use the 14th Amendment again. Remove the 14th Amendment, everything collapses, correct?
Well, I'm kind of at a different place, Becky. It's going to be hard for me to have this conversation with you. But my point now is that let's be realistic now. If we're down to where we're at right now, if we're in the corner we're in right now, the 14th Amendment, it wasn't ratified lawfully in any way, shape, or form. And this Supreme Court is no Supreme Court of any government that is associated with America. They can have all their corporate ties with the United States, which they've demonstrated that they are fully entrenched in. But it's not a government. They can't be a corporation and a government. They've shown themselves to be for the corporation. They can't be both. Now, they violated every aspect of the Constitution and all of the founding. Now, all of the founding includes the spirit of the founding, and this is what happens with law crafting. And when they ditched the organic 13th and allowed the crafters to come in, is that they craft out the spirit through language. Now, if you read all of the supporting documents of the founding, if you truly embrace the founding of America and the Constitution that separates these government servants from us who rise and live above it. They don't even serve us, really. They're beneath us to the point that they serve a constitution which is below us and protects us from those servants. So they're not even at a level with us. Truly, they're not. But at this particular point, this Supreme Court is no Supreme Court. None of that matters. Right. They're not a Supreme Court. And they're certainly not of this government. I'm kind of at the point where I can't even play games about it anymore. I can't even get into debates. And there's some really learned people who know a lot more than I do, verse for verse about which chapter and article. I can't do that, but I have a deep, strong grasp of the spirit, and I can't play I can't play games anymore. Semantics about the crafting of something. Let's talk about the something, not the crafting. Everybody wants to talk about an economy. It's like, well, let's talk as true technologists about what economy is, not the economy that's been created as the game you must follow, but real economy. Right?
Right. What we're dealing with is a fabricated economy that they keep creating a scenario to create a number, and it's all in. It's so ridiculous. It's like going to test, and the teacher had 20. You answered 2 of them.
Oh, you're breaking up a little bit, Doug.
Okay. You answered 2 of them, and you left the other 18. You left the other 18 blank on the test, and then you went to the teacher and said, "No, I want to be tested on only those 2 questions. The other 18, I don't want to have in my test." And it's exactly what they're doing. They're creating a scenario that works to their benefit, and it has no relevancy on reality. None, zero, nada. It's not even in the same conversation of reality. There was 432,000 people that stepped out of the workforce last month, last quarter, and there were 226,000 jobs, and the unemployment rate dropped from 5.5% to 5.3%. You figure that.
Well, yeah, but even the work environment that these people are working in is part of that creation that is part of the fabrication that is known as our economy and everything else that goes with it. The entire world view and environment is a created thing, at least the one that we're subjecting ourselves to and we're living within. And if we don't follow that parameter and those restrictions any longer, we will, and it's like, well, but these resources, they have to be expensive. We have a finite amount of them. We'll just burn through them. We waste so many natural resources and burn through them because they are instrumentally tied to economics. And it makes sense for these massive corporations, which don't benefit us, but they do benefit their shareholders. It makes sense to them to waste incredible amounts of resources because it makes them money. The more you burn, the more you charge. And the more that the profiteer, they don't pay for it. It's the rest of us that pay for these wastes. You know,
it's under
the most prosperous nation.
It's under the same guise as baseline budgeting. That is such a trick word, baseline budgeting. All it means is the money that we spent last month, we're going to spend this month plus, and or last year, this year plus. And it doesn't matter last year if you had a war going on or you had this going on. It doesn't matter if you had a factory burned down. It doesn't matter.
You know, it's interesting you use that example because they use that same baseline construct with toxic levels and readings in the environment, whether it's in the water, the air, or the land. They're the baseline. And then they plus. So next year, that baseline, because of the way it's structured, it reads from
it
the
could have
average
been the wettest
pollution level of last year as being normal. No, it's not normal at all. That's 20 times over normal, but it is what it was last year. So if that's what you're going to call normal.
I had a conversation today with a customer, okay? I'm a plumber. You don't know me. I do service work. I was at 5 houses today and met 5 people today and worked on their house. And I had a conversation with a customer today, and I get into trying to open people's eyes about what is going on, and could tell this customer was of a certain mind, and so I broke into a conversation. And this even breaks down to the smallest election on the smallest town. You can have a city manager in the smallest town that just got elected. But the first thing he wants to know is what was last year's budget, okay? And what are the requests of next year, so that I'm focusing on a budget, you know, and he's focusing on expansion and growth. Well, let me tell you, folks, I want to hear one day that there is a politician that walks into office and says, I'm going to reduce the size of government by 50%. I would go around with a gun and gather people to go up and vote for the person. We need a person that's going to. We have so many bureaucratic bloating. If you want to talk about overweight America, overweight is in the politics of America. There is so much obesity in this system that has turned into a monster. When you talk about too big to fail, when you talk about GM back in the day or whatever, or Lehman Sachs or whatever the case is, too big to fail, the too big to fail is the size of the freaking U.S. government. The U.S. government employs so many people. Listen, it is a scenario where, let's say you owned a tire shop and you didn't have any business. Well, you drive up and down the highways and you throw out a few roofing nails. You create those people are in place, and those people, for the most part, are in position to specifically siphon the business and the economics of every person and company in this country. So they're not too big to fail. In the reality, when you get rid of that illusion of economics that's been placed over us and the entire scenario of taking us over, if you do fail them and you get rid of them, suddenly the entire nation is open to the necessity of the people to fill their needs for ourselves. We don't have other foreign countries benefiting, 12, 20, 30, maybe a couple hundred primary stockholders for the companies that are making the money off of their stocks because they're getting their labor for $1.27 a day in another country, but it's not benefiting America because the manufacturing facilities that would otherwise be holding the jobs here would be up and running, taking care of that. Well, but if this corporation goes down, there'll be 30,000 people that will lose jobs, and this and that won't go on. Well, then a number of other people will start up a company to provide what that corporation no longer is. And then, hey, we'll have companies providing legitimate working environments and actually working for prosperity, profitability, good service, and good products rather than an instrument selling on the market for higher or lower. Hey, if you want to buy stocks, and that's fine and dandy. But, they used to be done differently with your company stocks than they are today. But if you want to go to some place to have lunch and you want to, support or buy based on their stocks, they might as well just give you a bunch of paper wrapped in a bun and shove it in your face and say, eat this. Because if that's all it's about to us, then, we've been deluded and delusioned badly here. So if we could shut this down and provide all these jobs here in America back again, or just cut off this corporatism and this fake economics that's going on, we're going to be fine. If we take this government too big to fail and these corporations and bust them in their bank, we're free of their debt instantly and their siphoning, which is their money laundering and everything else, and their over-regulations and this, that, and every damn thing else. And suddenly we can have healthy companies again, like we had when we boomed originally. The entire world wanted to follow and copy America because we were on an industrial explosion, because we weren't limited. We had that little free window when private enterprise surpassed the incorporation that occurred in the late 1800s. So we were actually able to live free for a little while, until they caught up with us with their bankers' plannings in 1910 and turned into the Federal Reserve in 1910 and all the rest that happened and everything else. But for a while there, we lived under our potential as companies and as Americans, unregulated and unrestricted. And that's what we could do again if we collapse this thing now. Too big to fail? No, force their failure. And then we're free of it. Yeah, but the thing is, what I mean by too big to fail is that the too big to fail is the the person employed by that government. Those people want their pensions. Those people want their weekly paychecks. Those people will keep their mouths shut. They are so self-centered about their own profitability, whether it be a business owner, whoever it may be. They will police officers will be fired just so that it appeases the higher up, not even the community. I was in McKinney. Believe me, the community of McKinney was in support of the police officer not being fired. He was fired. He was a scapegoat. He was dumped on to back down the situation because of the fear of what is the government. The thing is people will not sacrifice anything for their fellow man. Those days are over with. And it will take that. It will take people sacrificing something in order to keep what you have.
This is an easy resolve. If people look at what they have as being only a small portion of what's actually theirs and what it's worth, if they can see clearly what the difference is between what they have and what's actually theirs to begin with, not what they're left with, but what they generate from the start, that it's all theirs, there's a big difference. The other thing is that if we get rid of this other thing, we can truly afford. I'm not talking about just saying, like a couple loans here and there or being subject to some stupid fines. I'm talking about the entire debt being abolished because it was before we were subjected to it by criminals. I'm talking about that entire worth. We could instantly create enough script, not attached to any instruments, any commodities that can be manipulated by these same fuckers who created all this in the first place. I'm not talking about any of those types of attachments, but producing enough script, we can, at least for the first couple of years, provide everybody the opportunity. First off, we're entirely debt-free, not only as a nation, but as individual people, because all this crap has gone on by scam. We can, for the first couple years, easily provide the opportunity either via script or on the credit of anybody's signature, just because they're an American. For the first 2 years to fully function.
If I scratch off enough, if I scratch off enough lottery tickets, I'm going to hit the big one. But that's not really going to happen. But the problem that we're facing now is the American people are not going to take back what is theirs. We can sit here and talk about how wonderful. We can talk about how. They may do it at some point, but they're going to be forced to do it.
We're not in a place right now where you and I could have a conversation if one is going to be that the American people are never going to take their country back, because we're at a time where that is going to happen, that has to happen. And
No, Bill, I never said that it was never going to happen. I said the people can be forced to do it, okay? I just don't see the American people doing it now. I don't see the uprising. Listen, I'm at the lake this week, every day, and there will be thousands of people out in their boats and their jet skis, and they'll be laughing and having fun and barbecuing and don't have one iota about what is going on in the world. And even if I try to explain it to them, they do not want to hear it. They don't care about it.
Hey,
because
Doug, you should film this wonderful time with your family and your friends in this beautiful place. What you work your ass off to have the opportunity to go do in that place like where you're at this lake, you should film as much of that as you can and show people some of the benefit of being an American. And then we can add a little clip to the end of that and show them under Agenda 21 and under somebody else wanting these resources for themselves, what that means for us. And show people, like maybe going out into an overcrowded, dilapidated, urban enclosure environment where they actually want us all hurdled and huddled, and maybe some people moving their chairs downstairs to sit on the sidewalks as people walk over their gathering place.
You know, there was
there's an example of the difference.
When I was in McKinney and I heard the chant that this is not Baltimore, this is not Baltimore. After they got through, I walked over and I said, yeah, this is Baltimore. I mean, Baltimore is America, and, you know, this is McKinney, Texas, but this is the same as Baltimore. If you think that happened and it was just in Baltimore, you've got another thing coming, because what happened in Baltimore is going to happen here if you don't wake up and start doing something. And when you tell people think that it's somebody else's problem, that as long as it doesn't affect them, they don't care about corporations being taxed more because it doesn't affect them, they don't think. They're not intelligent enough to realize that in the end it does affect them. That's why a vehicle costs $40,000.
Well, there's a lot of reasons that it costs $40,000, and none of them are legitimate, good reasons. But what I think there's another way that we could look at this thing, like with McKinney and that chant, perhaps. We're not Maryland, we're not this, we're not that. I think the message is more that we're not going to allow that same circumstance, that same creation to occur. It's just, and the reason I made a point of even saying that is because, like, we can't look at the problems of the world so much right now. We just got to get rid of the cause of our problem in America, so that, I mean, it's like, you know, we see this happen in France, and we see this stuff happening in England and other parts of the UK and so on and so forth. But it's like, okay, well, we're not them. And I don't mean for it to sound like we don't care about other people, because obviously this is a whole America. But it might start with some cities putting their feet down so that this doesn't take hold throughout our America, that we're not this, we're not that, we're not going to allow this to happen, because we need to resolve our situation here in America. I truly think that if we get rid of these people, these globalists who want to have America fail and falter completely so that they can sit on their throne above us rather than just, you know, walking down hallways waiting for that moment, that the rest of these countries and the rest of the world will take a stand and eliminate that problem from their midst as well. At least at that point, we can become so solvent and reestablished in our own power here that if push comes to shove so severely from a foreign place by these people against us, our interests, or those we establish as friends, well, then we can do things in the rightful manner instead of by somebody else's corporate contracts.
Let's just say, for conversation's sake, that America was attacked by another country, and I'm talking battle on American ground. At this point in the American mind, what do you think the percentage of Americans would say, hey, no, we shouldn't be fighting. Let's find out what they want to, you know, what they want to talk about. I think that number would be huge. I think that it would be near 50% of the American public that would not want to fight, that would not want to protect.
In what regard? Fight? Which fight?
I'm saying if America was attacked, you know, pick anybody, you know, pick a country, pick Russia, pick
and
China.
You're saying that 50% of the people would not want to fight? You mean they would rather lay down, or they would just be afraid to fight?
No, they would rather lay down and try to understand.
And surrender to another country invading us and say, okay, you win, we're now yours.
We're already doing that. We're already doing that.
No. Right. No, I'm just trying to clarify how he's asking.
No, that's exactly what I'm saying, is that they would rather lay down and surrender their country and accept their new guidelines than they would to fight. They might even, I think they would even stand with another country and that, yes, America was wrong. Yes, America was wrong. We should, you know, be under another guidance.
Well, you know that. Yeah, I mean, we've always looked at that, but we've never really expected or needed the majority of the people to agree with us to fix this problem. In fact, we'll gain allies from among the people as things go forward, but in the case of some, they're just going to make good shields something to hide behind and catch bullets as we go on to the next better position. That's just the way it's going to be. Not everybody is going to stand up to fight for what's theirs, but whoever's left will be left to live with whatever we achieve. Plain and simple. But we can't not do it because not everyone's going to fight.
If I can intervene, because I'm not going to be around much longer, and I love having you guys on. I mean, you two are two of my favorite to come on and talk. I mean, you guys, the wealth of knowledge is just, it's incredible, and we're blessed to have individuals like you call the show, you know, and sharing shows and, you know, co-hosts, whatever the case may be, you know, just to even be on the show with us. But right now, I'm just want to say today is Casey Massey's birthday.
Yes.
And Casey, of course, is not with us right now. Casey's behind bars. I would like to ask if anybody out there can help out with Casey's wife and Casey are going through a thing right now. He really doesn't have commissary money. He's not able to get items of need, not of want, of need. And, you know, his wife, you know, could use a little bit of help with the phone bill, you know, for him calling in and stuff. And Casey's not very healthy right now. To my understanding, he's been having, I think it's kidney problems. I don't remember if it's kidney or liver. It's one of the two.
He's having bad kidney problems, yes.
Right. And also,
it could even be nephritis, which is a serious issue.
Right. And he also has shingles. Okay. And
Jesus.
I'm not an expert on it by any means. I don't tend to be a doctor. I used to tend to think I was a pharmacist at one time, though. But anyway,
pretty funny.
A street pharmacist at that. But seriously, we're going to, I'm going to ask anybody if you can, please. They're taking up, his wife Christy has been taking donations via PayPal, or if anybody can send a money order to Casey himself, so on and so forth. I do have the PayPal address for anybody that would be interested, and it's a very, very easy one. It's freecaseymassey@gmail. If you can, if anybody could send anything to him, via PayPal, that would be great, to Christy. If not, there's other information on Casey Massey's page. I also shared it to the Rage Against the Regime podcast page and the news page. Ways that you can send him money if anybody wanted to send him a money order or whatever. It's not even just about the money. If anybody wants to send him letters, okay, he is looking forward to people writing him, and having pen pals to write back and forth to. And he's been getting more into his Bible now, and he's been reading the Bible now more than ever. And, it's not one of those cases where you hear people all the time, all of a sudden they're going to become religious because they're in jail and this and that. Casey's always been a man of God, but I think he's kind of renewing his vows with God right now. And, he's just reading more of the Bible, so on and so forth. And, I would really, really love it, to be able to hear stories and see things that Christy's posting that, people started writing him and people were able to send him money and so on and so forth. Myself, I sent him $25 today. We had one other person send him $25. I mean, I'm not telling you guys to brag, but what I'm saying is, yes, I'm doing it myself. I'm not asking people to do something that I wouldn't do myself. So if anybody can, be so kind to send money to Casey, it's freecaseymassey@gmail.com, or you can go to the Rage Against the Regime podcast page or the news page and find the other information to send him a money order straight to the jail. And, there also his pen pal information is there if anybody wants to start sending him letters or cards or, if you want to send him a late birthday card or something. I bet that Casey would really, really enjoy that, and I think he would get a good kick out of it. So,
hey, Bobby.
but that's
Bobby, it
yes,
is
ma'am.
his birthday, so where do I send a cake with the file in it?
Yeah. How about some dynamite? That would probably work better than a file. But then again, look at these groups in New York that broke out of a prison.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
They got out with a file, so I guess the files really do work. So, but we want to say happy birthday to Casey Massey, even though he can't hear us. And we just, every day it hits me like a ton of bricks when I sit there and think about, what this country's come to, and people like Casey Massey going out on the border, standing up for our rights, okay, and standing out on that border and trying to, stop the illegals coming across and doing the job that our own Border Patrol wasn't doing a very good job at, and, getting caught with the case. This is a bullcrap case, and everybody knows it. And I don't understand how he's still in jail. But, I'm not really going to get into the things that I think hurt him and the things that I think that helped him. But right now, with him having a public defender and not having the best team, I guess you could say, legally behind him, I think that kind of hurts him a little bit. So, I hope that the information that David Roach and Bill shared, here about 3 weeks ago or a month ago or whatever it was, I hope that kind of helps him out a little bit. But
well, hopefully Casey's wife gets in touch with David directly, because some of that stuff might be able to help. And then I found a post of theirs separately when she was talking about some of his medical condition. About if any of that stuff is on record previously from other physicians on file anywhere that it exists, and this is escalating to the point where it is, he should be taken from whatever facility or containment that he's in and put under medical watch.
Right.
Absolutely.
And, it sucks that he's being detained unlawfully anyway, but if he is going to be, he might as well be under medical detention and be treated.
Right. Well, anybody that doesn't know, that's probably the most informative show that Rage Against the Regime has done. It's in the top 3 at least. When you and David Roach got together with James, a very, very informative show. I've listened to it a couple times already because I'm trying to figure out how to get out of paying my taxes. So.
Well, you just have to be really willing to, cinch your pants up, be comfortable in your boots, and walk the walk. Because even after they can't come after you, they will go after people you work for. You'll have to maybe get to a point of either finding the right company who's willing to stand up against them, or be going to work for yourself.
Right.
Well,
here, I got a question for you, and I have a question for Doug, because I think Doug would know a little bit about this also. In the last couple of days, it seems that a law has been passed, and I guess the Supreme Court voted in favor of there no longer being a warrant needed to come into a property.
They can't do that. So, in other words, there's a demonstration that the Supreme Court is like it's a row or two, depending on how they sit them, of clowns, robed clowns. They mean nothing.
Well, I've been seeing a lot of information coming out here the last couple of days stating that, they don't need a warrant anymore to come into the house. And, I know that there's a fine line there that, it's like the fine print saying, that there has to be somebody else that resides at the residence, something. There was a fine line. I just didn't read it all the way through. It started getting a little bit confusing.
Those lines aren't actually fine at all. Those are very solid, thick lines of mortar. They've just deteriorated the appearance of them through lock wrapping over decades and decades and decades.
Okay, so then maybe you can cover it a little bit. So what is the whole story behind it? Are they able to come into the house without a warrant or no?
There is no freaking way. It is the worst constitutional violation. Will they do it? Absolutely they will. They are doing it. That's what I'm saying. And if you remember some of the earlier shows from last year, I always spoke up about, well, there's all these methods that people were looking to, like, take back our rights and to do these things. I've always stated that, and I'm fighting with people about it today, that whatever method we choose to use and whatever way we go about it, whatever forces the tipping point to put them on the spot enough will be what causes our revolution, or for them to just say, okay, we're not playing anymore. We're not going to try to disguise it. We're going to drop the facade. We're actually taking over your country. It's going to boil down to that.
They've already done that. They've already done
your
that.
point. That's where we're at. That's why I'm saying that's where we're at now. We got to quit pretending. We got to quit playing.
The Texas case, right?
Any case.
Yeah. Okay. I forget, and guys, I apologize because I've been covered up, and I've read comments on it, but I haven't went and read the ruling or the dissent yet on the on what they actually passed. But I know that Texas was suing over the fact of unlawful entry. But I'm not educated on it yet. I knew that was the last thing that they pushed through before they closed out, and they snuck it through there, and it had something to do. It was in with the also the dang it, what is it? The University of Texas, and the using race as a deciding factor. I don't know. I'm not educated on it yet. I need to go back and read up on it. I'll do that tonight and figure out where it's at. Let y'all know.
What happened at the University of Texas?
Well, it had to do with admissions. It was thrown in. They made 3 decisions on the Supreme Court made 3 final rulings, and one of them they sent back down to the lower courts. But it had to do with not segregation. What is it called? Damn, I can't even think right now.
Preference? You mean you talking about preference by color? That one? Like if you're colored, you get in?
Yes. that they could still use it as a deciding factor. There's a young woman that could not get into the University of Texas, and she was white, and she had higher scores, and she had the ability, and she sued, and it's been in the courts now for 4 years, 5 years, and they already sent it down 2 years ago, and it came back up because they said the argument, it had no right. They wanted to know the basis of the argument. And
they're saying
are you saying that they're using like hate crimes and discrimination to sneak in legislation to where they claim that they don't need to get search warrants also?
Correct.
Okay, so I understand what you're saying. And there's the example right there, Becky, that answers one of your earlier questions regarding the consequence of hiding the organic 13th Amendment. It was the greatest assault against the covert espionage forces of England to ever get America back, and their bankers and all of that. It was like, no, we can't get the Esquires taken out. We can't have our agents. We can't have these nobility figures taken out of the government process. That will ruin us. So these kind of things where they can craft things into bills, one thing that doesn't have a damn thing to do with another, period, and then they try to make the colors either so skewed or so apparently perfect that it must be so. No, it's a fucking crafting. You pay more money to go see a good illusionist than you do a bad magician.
What are we going to do? We can sit here and complain about it all day long, expel our knowledge, give it to everybody out there listening. But this is my own personal assessment. We have a nation full of friggin' cowards, right down to the ones who claim that they took the oath to defend against foreign and domestic enemies that will refuse to do anything. Anything. Nobody can organize now, and that goes back to the point that I made when we opened this show, is they have us so disturbed, and there's so much dissension among us. There's so much hatred between the groups that they keep putting out there through unjust laws like what you're speaking about that infuriate the other party. And now we are so scattered we couldn't organize a friggin' barbecue. So what do? How can we stop this train wreck?
Well, this is where me and Bill, we agree on everything.
Yeah.
But this is where me and Bill disagree a little bit in the fact that my idea of this is self-protect. Bill's, I believe I've talked with Bill about this before in another show, is gather together and take our country back. He's under the mindset that ability still exists in the American people. I'm under the belief that does not exist. I know 25 or 30 military personnel that are active duty at this time right now. It's not in them. I know so many people that are in the fight, but they are more in the fight, citizens I'm talking about, not military, that are in the fight, but they're in the fight for their own self-gratification, to feel like they did something good. But they're not in the fight if it involves them losing their job. They're not in the fight if it involves them having to embarrass themselves. They're not in the fight if it means driving to D.C. They're not in and marching on the Capitol. There's a call right now with a young man named Rich that was there in McKinney. I think he had drove like 8 hours to get there. He wanted to be there that Saturday morning, and he's got a little footing behind him. I'm sorry I don't know his last name, but
Rich Kent is who you're talking about.
He's got a call to order right now to march on the Capitol in Washington.
Rich Kent, he's out of Houston.
Yeah, and he physically wants to serve papers on the officials in Washington and have them arrested. He was investigated he has an interview out there right now with the FBI.
You guys, I hate to do this to you, but I look down at the board, and it has blown up. We've got area code 361 has their hand up for 509 area code and 580. I'll get to you in just a minute. I do apologize. I'd set the board down for a moment and walked away from it. 361 area code. Your mic is open. Who's calling in?
This is Marion Cobretti. How are you doing?
Hey, brother. I'm doing good, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. I've been doing a little bit of traveling, and I kind of just left the job and my life behind for a while. And, just talking and meeting people, not on Facebook, but actually talking and meeting people. And I'd just like to send a big shout out to a guy named Donald Trump. Because a guy named Donald Trump, he actually woke up. Yeah, he woke up the Apache and the Navajo Nations. They don't know why they woke up, but apparently they don't like some of the things he said, so they're doing up for an uprising. And, of course, they don't know the bigger story. So I naturally, yours truly had to elaborate on some of the things that have been happening and give them a little bit of education and point them in the right direction. I haven't stayed in steady contact. But where I do have a big mouth, and wherever I go, I will talk. And people are actually look at me like I'm kind of got something large protruding going out of my forehead, like a unicorn, until they warm up to me and start realizing this guy might know what he's talking about. And all of a sudden, somebody will step out of the crowd. Hey, yeah, this and that. And nobody wants to be that guy to say Agenda 21 or whatever in public. And you know me, I really don't care too much. But you know what? Like I've said before, everybody all around the world is gearing up for war, but not everybody knows the bigger picture or what the case. So, you know, along with everybody in America, for the most part, keeping up with Caitlyn and the Kardashian, whatever have you, and like the gentleman said earlier about going to the lake and having a good time, yeah, that's a lot of people are just living life and stuff, and a lot of people don't want to see and address the pink elephant in the room, and sooner or later it will come to that. But just know that there are people out there that are asleep that will, at the drop of a hat, do what they've got to do. Not all of them are into politics, and not all of them are awake. I've seen this whole Jade Helm thing wake up a lot of people. I've seen a lot while people are neglecting Jade Helm. Into Jade Helm, they neglected Operation Maple Resolve and so on and so forth. I don't keep up with any of that stuff anymore because you go down too many rabbit holes. And everybody starts talking about flags and all kinds of crap. You can't even be united under one flag. Why the hell you want to be fighting for another one that you don't even fly, you know, from day to day? But because somebody said that it's going to be against the law, all of a sudden they're going to make a black market for it. And, oh, wow, man, who cares? You know what? You can't even get united under one flag, one cause. You know, squash that issue. You know, like I still stick to what I've said before. Everybody polices their own backyard. There's no need to march on Washington. They'll realize that all these little things they're trying to do to stir up controversy and, you know, make a ripple in a pond, it won't work after a while. Everybody keeps rushing to these little petty BS issues that, man, who cares? You know what? When we get them out of office, however means it's necessary, because in maritime, you know, under that maritime flag, they want to go to fringe on there. If we're at war, I think the punishment for treason is death, right? And if we're at war and these politicians are committing treason against their country, I think we should go by the rules, you know. But of course, nobody wants to step up and say that and see that and do what's got to be done, because we're still trying to follow the laws that they're making against us, you know. And, well, it is what it is. One day we'll all see what happens and what has to be done, and did we do enough, you know. I know people have put a lot of time and effort into it. I know Bill has for quite some time, very knowledgeable. Becky has, Bobby has, and, I mean, you know, do what you can, but in the end, what are we going to do? If we ever see the boots on the ground, foreign boots on the ground, are we going to stand there and lay down? Some might.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely they are. Absolutely. I would guarantee you 80% of the so-called patriots that are in this movement will run like little pussies to the hill. They don't know much more than shooting a deer or shooting a piece of paper that doesn't move or shoot back. I can guarantee it.
Becky, I disagree with you, and I'm going to tell you why. They call us 3%ers for a reason. 97%.
I'm not talking about the 3%.
No. I'm talking about patriots. I'm talking about patriots in general. 3% will stand up, okay, and fight. There's going to be 97% out of the 3% that are going to run, okay?
That's what I'm talking about right
it.
there.
Yep.
Right there.
I only think 3% of us will stand up.
That's it in a nutshell. You guys, I hate to cut you off, but we have a couple other guys holding. I'm going to put you on hold, Marion, but don't go away. I'm going to come back to you.
You know what? I'm going to get out of here, too. I'm going to clear some room for other people. Good night, everybody. I love you all. Without you, we are
nothing. Brother.
And you know what? Maybe tomorrow will be another day. Maybe we'll do another one. All right. Hasta la vista. Thanks, everybody. All right.
Area code 509. You're on live. Who have I got?
Hello, Becky.
Hey, brother. How you doing? How you doing, Thomas?
I'm doing all right.
Hey, Thomas.
We'll be better when we get our republic back.
Yes.
And I agree with you. Most people are going to run for the hills. They're going to do shit. They don't care. If they cared, they'd be doing it right now when there wasn't a fight.
Well, they're sitting around bitching on a keyboard. Yeah, they're sitting around complaining on a keyboard talking about how tough they are. They go about every 6 weeks to 3 months to a weekend event they call a FTX camp. They do about 4 hours of training. Most of them are being misguided and misdirected by people who don't even know what the hell they're doing. They're self-appointed. They're egomaniacs. They're narcissists, and they can't come together collectively. They don't know what an ROE is, an SOP. Nobody's on the same board. They won't form a coalition. They won't follow under anybody else's command that has a better structure, has more experience. It is pathetic what is going on in our militia movement.
Because we're
Go ahead, brother. I'm sorry.
This just broke in Nevada. I think it's Greenville or no, I've just got off of it. But Gainville or Greenville, something in Nevada. Department of Motor Vehicle just pulled down the American flag, and lady that sent this to me said that she walked up and asked them why they were taking it down. It was 2:00 in Nevada, and stated that they had received orders from the state that it was offensive to some people, so that they were starting to pull down all the flags.
No.
See, now, are we going to let this happen? Are we?
No, I know, but see, you sit here, and there is so much stuff that comes across. And I'm just sitting here as I'm listening to y'all and watching this. What they want to do, and they won't do this in all areas. Just like the situation that happened in McKinney died out real quick, and the situation in South Carolina blew up like crazy. Now, I'll give you 9 people were killed there, but the Confederate flag had nothing to do with the deaths. They're picking these, and I don't mean nothing bad about South Carolina. I used to live in North Carolina when I was in the Marine Corps. Picking areas that they believe that they can get away with these situations. They're picking inner cities where they know a riot can sustain itself. They're picking areas that they can get away with their manipulation that will feed the media infrastructure. They are doing all of this by design. They will make things happen in certain parts of the country that will spread little rumors and see how fast it'll blow up and who will object to it. They're watching every bit of it, folks. This is all a game.
Earlier, Doug, when I watched the news earlier today, I did see something briefly. I was multitasking and working, so I missed a bit of it. But there was a seg on the American flag being removed for an entire county somewhere in the USA, and one of the spokespersons for that county was actually being interviewed, and that was, in fact, a news seg, and I would have to do some digging. But honest to God, if we can vet this, patriots from around that state and in that state need to ascend onto that city or that county and go in and start taking out the mayor and putting them in cuffs, start taking out... See, as far as I'm concerned, that's an act of treason.
But who is the senator in the state of Nevada? I think that ought to be right up.
They need to be handcuffed right now.
I think we know him.
Becky?
Who is it?
Yeah.
That's not an act of treason. That's an act of capitulation.
War.
When you take down your flag, at the demand of another, you are capitulating. You are surrendering your ground and the sovereignty of that territory over to the complainers.
Bingo.
It's an act of war on the American public. Is it not?
It's not really defined as an... Yeah. Go ahead.
Actually, what you're doing is your political leaders, or so-called political leaders, because as you probably realize, Becky, I don't recognize the federal government. I see the oligarchy, the corporate global oligarchy, run by the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, J.P. Morgan Company, and other corporate elite, global corporate elite that run this country. They decide who our leaders are. And since March 27th, 1861, when Congress, not having a quorum to conduct business after the South left, they adjourned sine die. They dissolved Congress by not. It's a parliamentary procedure where they had the power and only the power to determine if a quorum exists, and if it doesn't, then they had the power. Then they had the requirement, if they were to remain a legislative body, to set another date and time to assemble to determine if a quorum exists. But they didn't do that. Congress adjourned sine die without setting a time to reconvene, thereby dissolving the Congress of the United States. And thereby, we've been under emergency rule since that time because it was never lawfully restored. So the state of Nevada isn't a state because it was brought in under emergency rule. There was no Congress to give its assent to statehood. It was done by emergency decree. And if you read their constitution, it's a reprehensible piece of legislation. It actually declares the supremacy of the federal government over the states in their constitution. So I have a completely different tact than any of you now. And recently, a friend of mine asked me to pull the data out of the code, United States Code, for the militia. And what I discovered was, since I last saw the Title 10, Section 311 of the United States Code, it defined both the unorganized and the organized militias. But now, the United States Code, Title 10, Section 311, they've removed the definition of the unorganized militia, and they removed the exclusion of federal officers from the militia. What does that tell you?
Wow.
There is no state defense. The federals are claiming absolute supremacy over the states by that action. They have removed. In so-called federal court, they have removed the ability of the states to defend themselves in the federal
statute. And yet they're not entitled to.
Pardon?
And yet they're not entitled to.
No. They have no such authority.
That's right. That's the thing that people need to recognize.
They have no such authority. Congress is going willy-nilly, removing all semblance of federalism from the United States Code. They are, in fact, taking away the illusion of constitutional government. So for 154 years, the American people have been living under the illusion of constitutional government, while the oligarchy, knowing full well the true status, has been slowly eroding and removing the vestiges of Americanism from the minds of their people.
But they're at the point now to where they are about to pull back the curtain and say,
well,
because you can slowly eat away at something until a point to where somebody is going to have cancer for years and years and doesn't ever go to the doctor. Terrible pain for whatever. But eventually somebody's going to look at him and say, you got something bad. Well, right now, this cancer that is this cultural Marxist event that is going, Marxism that is taking place in the United States and just taking over our Constitution and just taking one page at a time or one line at a time away from it, is eventually the people like us are seeing what is going on, and they're going to have to pull back the curtain one day.
Well, no, I think you're not understanding. You're not fully understanding what I just got done saying, and that is that since March 27, 1861, the Constitution for the United States of America has not been in force or effect, only the illusion of it. Because the oligarchy who got control, they understood very well, they're not stupid people. They understand very well that had they revealed the true status of the Republic at that time, Lee would have found another army. There would have been a continuing battle. There would not have been a surrender. I don't believe Lee would have surrendered the Army of Northern Virginia if he knew the true state of the Union, which he did not at the time. And he regretted that action later. He stated so in his memoirs.
Okay.
We have been conquered by a global corporate oligarchy. And we're at the point now where they are finally taking off the gloves, revealing the true position, and they're not even pretending the Constitution exists. So we have a choice. We can do like the state of Nevada is doing, pulling down their flag, and we can raise up the District of Columbia flag on our territory and surrender, or we can fight. I don't
that is Harry Reid that is the senator in Nevada. I mean, nobody answered it a while ago, but that's who it is.
Defeated. Yeah.
Well, or was
Treason Incorporated.
Yeah.
But my point is that the state of Nevada, in reality, is not a state of the Union, because after 1861, nothing admitted from that time was admitted by an organic government of the United States. It was admitted by a corporation. And as far as I know, the Constitution has not been amended to allow a corporation to admit states in the Union.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, too, to keep a good grip on when you bring up that good point, Thomas, is that it becomes a territory, which in that case is it would be managed and trusted by the federal government, except that,
correct.
Except that, again, this particular group pretending to be a government of any sort isn't official enough for us to allow them to lay claim or make decision over anyway, because there are American lives existing on that land, and we still have a responsibility to see, since we don't have an official national government body, to see that those people are protected.
Well, that is the duty of the militia, is to protect the lives, liberty, and property of the people.
That's right. All those living humans.
Guys, we have someone else that's been holding that would like to join the conversation. I'm going to bring them in. Area code 580. Who's calling in, please?
Yeah, good evening. It's Floyd the Cheers. Glad to hear you.
Hey, brother, I've missed you so much. Welcome.
I missed you all. I'm enjoying this conversation. All my favorite people are talking here.
Hey.
Well, all right. So Floyd, what's your take on the conversation today, brother?
Well, there's two things. One, the inaction of the militia. That, of course, is always in forefront in my mind. It never leaves. Why the hell are we not doing something to stop this? Because we all know that every day we wait, it gets harder. I've been at this a while, and when I first started this, it would not have been nearly as hard as it is today. There are many, many reasons that the militia flops. One of the main things is that we're sworn to defend the Constitution. Well, there is no Constitution to defend. That is the dilemma right there. If you really come down to it, where in the world are we supposed to say, okay, here's where we stepped in, if we don't have even the very basic thing that we're supposed to defend here? We want to join hands with law enforcement. That is, it's my biggest pet peeve. The militia just had a huge alert, a big thing going on. The FBI called us and wanted us to join them in being aware of ISIS and domestic threats and all kinds of good things going on there. And, of course, I'm one of the folks that say, bullshit, the FBI is not in my chain of command. I don't accept orders from them like that.
Right?
Good man.
Right, Doug? Doug, have you met Floyd? Have you met Floyd,
no.
sir?
No, I don't
I'd like to introduce you to one of my biggest heroes. I absolutely adore Mr. Brashear. He does so much for the Patriot community and the militia groups. Floyd, this is Doug McDougall. He too is a very active member of the patriotic movement. He's well versed, very knowledgeable in constitutionalist, and I would like to have you guys form a coalition as well. You can bring a lot to the table for one another.
Absolutely. I've got an answer for Floyd's question.
All right.
Yeah. We need to go back to the Declaration of Independence. We need to go back to square one and throw off this tyranny like we threw off Great Britain. And we need to redo what was done. Only this time, one hell of a lot smarter than we were then. That's the only course I can see going forward.
That's exactly what we need to do. What we need to do is go back to the Constitution as it was written by our founding fathers. The day the Declaration of Independence was written, and the first 10 amendments. This is what we do. This is what we believe in. Everything else has been. Well, it was all changed during the Civil War and after the Civil War, after the North-South War, I prefer to call it, and the corporation moved in and they've changed it daily. They've changed everything. They don't even look at it anymore. The Supreme Court is now calling social norms over law. They're not interpreting law at all. What they're doing is setting the social norms for people now. That doesn't seem right. That's not constitutional at all. What I was going to say with the thing that to get into doing something, to actually to stand up and do something, here's the dilemma. Like I was talking about, the FBI supposedly wanted the militia to join in and watch on this, and no, that's bullshit. Then people still want to buy into this. The militia people were so hot for that they couldn't even convince themselves that it was a lie. They instead convinced themselves of all the wonderful merits that could be derived from this. And I said, listen, you people, you're buying into a lie. There is nothing good coming from a lie. Think about that. And so you talk about, who are you going to fight if you fight the government? Well, first you're going to fight law enforcement. That's number one. That's their enforcers. That's their people that go around and say, okay, you broke our corporate law. We're going to put you in jail, and you're going to pay big fines. You're going to pay all of our lawyer fees, and you're going to be part of our system for a very long time. It's going to cost you a lot of money. That's what it's all about. And how do the people, common people like me, a truck driver, step up and say, hey, Sheriff, I've had all I'm going to take off you. You're under arrest. You're not only under arrest, all your deputies are under arrest. All of them big guys are going to jump on me, beat me up, take my little squirt gun away from me, and throw me into a deep, dark cell right next to Casey Massey. That's the way it is.
Yeah.
And that's what's got militia blocked up. What we need is a happening, like the flag. My gosh, they almost did it with the flag. Can you imagine that being the catalyst that sets the whole world apart?
I think it's poetic.
Yeah.
Because this was the last organized effort to preserve states' rights, was the Confederacy. Yeah. They were fighting over states' rights.
That's what the war was fought over states' rights. They had nothing to do with anything else. It was all about, I got the right to live in Mississippi and sell my cotton to France if I want to. You cannot make me bring it up there to Pittsburgh and give it to you crooks. That's right. What it was about, and that's what we are looking at now. You cannot make me buy Obamacare. I do not want that shit. It doesn't do anything for me. It just costs me money. And no, you cannot take my money from me and give it to those guys that want Obamacare. That's wrong. I don't want it, and I don't want them to be having it through my effort. And so, what we're looking at is total chaos. The TPP and Jade Helm, this is already kicked off big time. This is going on right now. We're just standing here looking at it happening. And the next thing I see, yeah, it's going on big time. And the next thing I see is they're going to come to my door, and they're going to say, I want your AR. And you know what? I'm going to give it to them. You have no choice, right? Or you die. Or you're arrested and you're locked up away and whatever. Give them the damn thing because there's more. Okay, but they take it now. Fred.
Let me ask y'all a question. This was just brought to my attention, and it's kind of off subject, but not really. Ohio, for the first time since the lottery has been in place in Ohio, they are not printing tickets for the lottery this weekend. What do you think that might mean?
I think they're getting ready for a major economic crash with Greece falling apart, and if they can't get TPP passed fast enough to protect their petrodollar, what are they going to do about gold? They got no gold. They can't show any gold. They can't support nothing. They killed Gaddafi. They're fighting Texas. Anybody that asks for gold has got a death warrant on them right now, and that's the way it is. They are scared to death that they're not going to get under the gun. Corporations are ran like with deadlines. Okay, you've got to turn these reports in. You got to get this done. Every bit of this is going on, and they have a deadline. They damn sure got a deadline with the economics of this country not collapsing before they get it done.
And I think that the deadline right now happens to be a window for them where they realize that these people are at their stupidest, they're at their weakest, and they're most confused. But at the same time, they're waking up to more and more of what we really are. We either take them over now or we lose our chance altogether, at least to do it legitimately or, with a pen rather than everything else. So that's what we have to stop.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Well, that ought to be a very stern warning to people who have investments out there. You better watch what's going on because that's a telltale sign of something much larger than what you're thinking. As a normal person would think.
Somebody said earlier in the show that people were not going to give up anything for humanity anymore. And I agree. People are greedy. That's what our problem is. That's why we have this problem. We're all greedy. We've bought into this Walmart. We bought into everything all the way. So it's all our fault, and we're still greedy. We still have a lot of stuff. We still got good jobs. We still got everything going on. So we're really not wanting to do anything to upset our apple cart, really, We're still wanting to get our stuff. But if that stuff is taken away from us, then you watch people scream. You watch scream whenever they can't go to the grocery store and get what they need, or their color TV quits working because they shut off the wonderful communication system that we're now under. And wait till they start losing what they have, then people will start saying, "Hey, what's going on? I want it back." And then they'll pick up their old pop guns and meet down to City Hall and demand answers, And that's what we're not doing, folks. We're not going down to City Hall. We're not going anywhere. We're not demanding any answers. We're sitting and taking whatever they dish out. We take it. I tried to get people to go with me to the state capitol and at least document our grievances against this administration and against what's going on with TPP and what's going on in the Supreme Court. I was ridiculized because they said it won't work, and I said it doesn't have to work. All we got to do is do it, And that's where we just have to do something. Get off our asses and do anything. That's better than nothing.
Yeah, we've got a whole lot of nothing going on. Go ahead,
I've been
brother.
calling for guerrilla teams to start taking the fight and restoring local communities to constitutional control. They may have adjourned sine die in Congress, but if we replace the corporate officials in our local government with officials sworn to the Constitution for the United States of America, the one that was set aside, or the one that, in essence, it was set aside in 1861, and it had 13 amendments, by the way, and I want that 13th Amendment. I want that 13th Amendment to remain. So if we just start a guerrilla war and start forcing these corporate officers out of office and their protectors, harassing them, we can regain American freedom one community at a time until we encompass the whole. That's where I believe the fight is. I don't believe it's in the district. because all that's in the district are the puppets of the oligarchy. They could care less about the district. If you mass enough patriots in the district, I wouldn't give a nickel for their lives. I believe the oligarchy would detonate a nuclear device in the district, and then the media would blame us for it. But
or somebody, yeah.
No.
Yeah,
right. So I think the fight is our local communities. I think the fight is forming militia, guerrilla teams, in hit-and-run tactics, and start supplying our forces with the booty we take from theirs, just like we did in the Revolutionary War. We need to commence hostilities because the first shot was fired decades ago, and we've been sitting on our asses being fed by the fat cats to keep our mouths shut for decades. Isn't it time we stopped? We need to get our freedom back. And then, I mean, people cannot imagine. They think they got it good now. Imagine what the American economy will be like in the absence of the bureaucracy and the income tax. Just imagine that. Going to work for $15 an hour, say, and having every dime owed to you paid to you. Nothing taken out. Having your employer being able to hire people and not have a government bureaucrat standing over them.
You mean like they give the Muslims?
Yeah, exactly.
That kind of privilege?
Yeah. Right now, our enemies are favored, and we're being plundered. Yeah, and it really, really amazes me that the American people have put up with it this long. They are really, I mean, I can only think that MKUltra and the brainwashing that came from that has been phenomenally successful. Because now people are actually committing economic suicide by supporting the system as it is.
Absolutely, yes.
So I say let's get it on. Let's form up teams throughout the country, autonomous teams, no central command. We take one principle, actually two. The second paragraph of the Declaration of Independence, the first two sentences, spell out everything you need to know. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. So, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Now, take those two sentences into account. Is your local government, is your federal government protecting and securing your natural rights today? And if they're not, then you need to remove those officers that aren't and replace them with officers that will. It's as simple as that. And we have a revolutionary right to remove them. We have a right declared in the Constitution or in the Declaration of Independence to abolish this entire government completely and start from scratch.
An obligation.
We have a natural right. We have a natural right to do that. And so all these people that are running around going, well, can we do that? Are we going to get in trouble? Well, hell yeah. You're attacking the enemy. Yeah, you're attacking an enemy. And as a matter of fact, the news media, I'm looking for these teams that are forming to start action. And you know what I'm looking for? I'm looking for demonization. I'm looking for the news media to pick out these teams or to give them some fancy name and say how wicked they are and how horrible they are and how they're killing innocent people and they're doing all this and that. Because I know they're going to demonize us. They're going to make us look like the scum of the earth. Because we're their enemy. We're their enemy. And everybody that lives by the media's name or by their word and takes everything that comes out of that box that people in the paradise as holy writ, they're our enemies too.
Well, when you speak of militia groups and you've been calling for it, I always I try to fall back to scripture on finding guidance. I don't want to throw water on this conversation, but a lot of people remember part of a scripture in Luke that where God says, or Jesus says, to sell your bag and sell your. Well, actually, here it is, Luke 22:36, and he said to them, "But now let him who has a purse take it along, likewise also a bag, and let him who has no sword sell his robe and buy one. For I tell you that this which is written must be fulfilled in me, and he has numbered with transgressions, for that which refers to me has its fulfillment." Most people remember that portion of this, and they refer back to it. Okay, it's quite often used in conversation on defending ourselves. But what most people miss is the very last part of this, which is Luke 22:38. And they replied to Jesus, and they said, "Lord, look, here are two swords." They were moving things around, gathering their stuff, and they found two swords. And Jesus said to them, "That is enough." In other words, you don't have to buy any more swords. 2 swords is enough. I have seen this and prayed on it and thought about it and thought about it. It is not going to be large armies that take this back. It really isn't. This is going to be small militia groups that come together and covertly go behind the scenes, unknown, just things happen. I have been waiting on it. But another thing about the militia, especially here in Texas, and yes, I've worked freaking 15 hours a day, and I've got 5 kids and 9 grandkids. I have contacted 2 militias. And Floyd, are you in Mississippi? Where are you at, Floyd?
I'm in Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. Well, I was actually at the Capitol in Oklahoma, 16 freaking degrees, standing out there when the Muslims showed up to pray.
That was nice, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe we met each other. We just, but I
wasn't there that day, but I had people there, and I knew I was very aware of what was going on. There was some things that I didn't know.
It took me 22 hours to get to Lake Tawakoni, which should have took me about, 3.5. But I'm with you 100% in the fact that these militia groups need to have their separation elite and have these elite mobile and active today, whether it is doing intel or whether it is doing whatever it is, but it needs to be in these operations. I have attempted to join 2 militias to no avail. Cannot get Texas Outlaw Militia. Tony Hawk out of Mississippi hooked me up with the people locally. They're dysfunctional. They are not organized.
They are. Yes, I agree.
And I just can't get a return phone call. I've attempted to join 2, and it just hasn't happened. Now, some of it may be from lack of me, but you would think that if they would get somebody that was as active in the situation, plus I'm a Marine vet, trained in some pretty good stuff. I just leave it at that.
I recruit you right now.
But no, I've the people out there that ought to be putting these situations together, and I guess it ought to be me. I ought to just say the hell with it, and I ought to be putting together the local militia here.
Exactly.
I know.
That's what I've been calling for. These organized, as you pointed out, though, as these organized militias are inept. The evidence to me is very obvious. In the state of Texas, you have this huge border with Mexico, and it appears that the cartels have more control of the borders than the people of Texas.
By design.
And the militia,
we have a militia group that I've been sponsoring for about 2 years that's down at the border. And they actually detained 2 people coming across the border with large amounts of cocaine. Mm-hmm. And they detained them for the Border Patrol. But the whole time they were detaining them, these 2 guys were claiming to be CIA agents. once the Border Patrol showed
I
up
remember that, yeah.
and phone calls were made, it was proven that these guys were actually CIA agents, and
Yes.
they were working in an operation. So they actually had to release them. They had millions of dollars worth of cocaine.
But see, that's that.
It
goes
still
to what I
sounds
just
fishy,
said.
though.
That's what I said
They would
about
have
the
let them
oligarchy.
get busted.
Oh no, they'll bust them, then they'll let them go.
Right.
They gotta first they gotta vet them. You know, just because somebody says they're CIA doesn't necessarily make it so.
Well, but that to be that deep, even to let them go would be a different kind of a process than we would hear about, to where they would actually be acknowledged as CIA. It works differently. Those sick bastards, they work differently than that.
Yeah, but the oligarchy are not pretending anymore. I really believe they're not pretending anymore. They don't care. The oligarchy, they don't care.
Well, that's the thing about law enforcement too. Look at what's going on. They don't care anymore. If that big bald-headed guy that weighs 300 pounds walks up on either side of you, you're about to get the shit kicked out of you. That's what's going to happen. That's what's going on. Look at these people, man. They look like clones to me. Every police force has dozens of these big guys. That thing in McKinney. Now, you guys can talk about that. That cop did all what he did. I got my own feelings about what he did. But while he was holding that girl down, beating up this 15-year-old girl on the sidewalk, there were 3 big gorillas standing there out of uniform ready to protect him at all costs. Now, wait a minute. Who was threatened here? Nobody. I never saw anybody with guns but the one cop. That's what I saw.
Yeah.
And I don't kiss their ass. I think the guy was way out of line. He should have never grabbed that girl. He was out of line the way he treated people in the first place. I don't care if they're black kids crashing a swimming hole. That's what it was all about in McKinney. It was not Baltimore. McKinney was about the elite white people and the black people wanting what they had. That's what it was. And they had a microphone and a loudspeaker, and they invited all the black kids to come over to the pool party just to start shit, and they did it. And when the cops were ready to get them.
Let me tell you this part that never hits the news on that though. That's a real nice neighborhood, and the mother and daughter that lived there that actually put on the event, they rented that house, and they had moved there 4 months prior from Chicago. So they had moved from Chicago to that location and were renting that house. They were not, this is all by design. They weren't Section 8. That rumor was out there. I checked on it. They were not Section 8. These is a very expensive house. They were probably paying somewhere, $3,000 a month for it.
Yeah,
and
our intel that we got is the homeowner did the Section 8 program on the home. They have like this integration program that homeowners and mortgage companies adhere to better migrate more diverse society within neighborhoods, so to speak. And that was the word that we got, is that was actually...
There may be some portion of that, but I haven't seen. I work in Section 8 houses every day, and I haven't seen any rated Section 8 where people are paying in excess of $2,500 a month.
Well, no,
even if they were able.
The government would pay. The government would
pay.
I understand. The biggest part of that.
I understand, but I haven't ran into
wrong
that
with that
situation.
picture? That means that I'm paying somebody's rent. I live in a $500 a month house, and they get to live in a $3,000 a month house because what? I work and pay taxes? Yeah, they're wrong all over this.
Well, all of this was wrong from the get-go. With the police officer, I agree with you 100%. He lost his cool. He was out of control. But all of it by design was to stir up something. The problem is that the stir-up didn't happen the way, just like in South Carolina, the stir-up didn't happen. So what happens? We bring in the Confederate flag. Now we get a real stir-up. that they will point at us, and I mean by us, I mean communities. They will poke at us until they figure out what really gets us fired up, and whether it's to do intel about who's involved in the community and who they need to mark, or whatever the situation is. But they need to see how vulnerable a parts of the whole United States are. And that's why McKinney took place the way it did. I believe it was a false flag. I believe it was set up from the word go. From the mother and daughter moving in to the DJ being paid for and brought into it. If they're in a Section 8 program, what are they doing hiring a damn DJ to put on?
There are a bunch of actors there. That's what I'm saying. A lot of actors going on there. Yeah.
Well, the girl that was involved in the event that put the event on has already got got a modeling contract. So.
Well, there's several things on the internet that confirm or validate that was in fact a Section 8 house. Now, you have to understand they hail from Chicago. The DJ set up out of the area, or not out of the area, but not in the same yard, so to speak. And this was a well-orchestrated, well-organized flash mobbing. And they did one just 2 weeks later up in Ohio. So this is like another clever trap that the Action Network and the Obama administration have orchestrated to get these kids who have already proven they love to flash mob stores and play the knockout game by the droves. They come together very quickly, and they
we just saw that at the Walmart store.
Yeah, they're like cockroaches.
Yeah.
I personally, if I saw them coming at me, I would open fire on those little thugs. If I saw them coming at me like that, out of fear for my life, I would have no choice. But the police officers have been demonized. Their hands are bound. We saw it in Baltimore. What the mayor and the police commissioner and the police chief allowed to happen, over 100 police officers were injured. Millions in damages. They were given the go-ahead. They've been emboldened, empowered by this regime, and Al Sharpton and his little group of thugs, they're above the law, in other words. Because of their color, they're going to scream and sue. Policemen are going to lose their jobs. So now even our police officers are becoming apprehensive about enforcing law and stopping lawlessness. These little pavement apes have now got free reign to wreak havoc on America. And see, I'm just not good with that. I'm not good with that.
And Steve, Becky, that's what I was talking about, what gridlocks the militia. Now here you on your one hand you've got this chaos and these creepy little cockroaches, as you call them, coming out and doing all kinds of stupid shit. The police force is doing what they can to contain this, and therefore they garner an admiration and whatever from the militia. The militia says, I will help them cops, red, white, and blue. I'll help them. I'll stand there shoulder to shoulder with them, and that's what happened. So everybody's ready to help the police. They forgot about the police state altogether. Now what we got is a false flag here with a bunch of kids that are flash mobbing. This is well organized. There's not a bunch of kids doing this. Somebody figured it out and showed them how. They came into that store they didn't even stop to get nothing. They just ran through, tore shit up, and ran right back out. That was a well organized operation. I don't know if everybody got $5 or a hit of cocaine for it or how that works, but they all did a good job. I can't get my militia to even do that good of a job. I mean,
oh yeah. We
so
can't
here's what we got going on the one hand, you sympathize with the police. On the other hand, in order to defeat this government, I have to defeat the minions of the government, which are the police. Yeah. Police are not going to join me. They are going to shoot me if I pull out my gun and say, that is the end of it. I don't take no more. They're going to kill me on the spot. Now, that's our dilemma.
Okay, guys, I was at both of the Garland events, the Draw the Prophet Muhammad event. And
yeah,
then
me too.
I was I was at the previous event that where the New York imam that was indicted, on the World Trade Center bombing. Spoke at as a fundraiser, and we had 3,000 patriots there at the first event.
Yes, sir.
And we had that place lined up. It was the best energy. It recharged my battery so much. I'm still running on it. The thing, I think what they did is they were like, oh, we can't have this, okay? So the next event, they allowed the next event to go on, even if it hadn't been worked. I don't think Geller was caught up in the thing, but the shooting portion of it, they do this by design to instill fear in the average American, constitutionalist or patriot. They want to instill fear into us so that we do not rebel against the system. So the shooting took place. The one thing they didn't factor on was this, 60-year-old, retired cop pulling his service revolver and taking out a couple of guys. They did not see that happen. They did not see this traffic cop. Pretty much all he was doing was directing traffic. They did not see him being the savior of the day. That caught them off guard. But they want this so that people, the next time there's an event, instead of 3,000 showing up, maybe 100 will show up, or maybe 40 will show up. And what they're doing is working. Their system of putting fear into this situation, the shooting in South Carolina, how many people are too scared to go to church? I'm talking, there's a lot of people out there. I'm nothing against the grandma or whatever, but sees that shooting take place at a church or at a Bible study, she's going to think twice before she goes to a Bible study. I'm just telling you, they're manipulating us completely by design by using these little bitty false pop-ups. They could care less about life.
To distract us from our main enemy and from our main goal, which is gathering together. As we are America. The American people are America. Has not a damn thing to do with the president or senators or the Congress or whatever. Has nothing to do with that. The people are America. More than the land is America, more than anything else, the people are America. And what they want to squash is that people. And if they instill enough fear, take it all the way back to what Hitler did. And he instilled that fear. It's the same thing that the damn Taliban or ISIS or ISIL, whatever you want to call them, the whole Islam BS is about instilling fear. That's how they had the Iraqi soldiers drop their weapons and run. They didn't see too many heads cut off. It's a control of a populace or a society by using fear tactics to control the psyche of that populace. Well, that's a given, and everybody, I think most patriots really understand that we're just being covered up with bullshit. We've been covered up for over a year with bullshit. It's coming left and right. It ain't never stopped. Geronimo there, he can tell you. He'll tell you right now, and so will Mick. He'll tell you that we've been covered up with this for, almost 2 years with this crap coming steady. One crisis
we've been
after
talking
another.
about it together for longer than that, for sure.
It's one crisis after another that degenerates from your base of being able to say, well, this is where I stand, this is what I am, and this is who I am. And no, not anymore. Now I've lost that right. I don't feel right because now it's okay for homosexuals to walk down the street naked, or it's okay for the Muslim with a burqa in my neighborhood, or everything is okay except for me. I'm not the one that's okay anymore. I'm walking down the street and I'm looking over my shoulder and I'm not looking for ISIS terrorist. I'm looking for a cop. Make sure I don't get arrested here today. That's what I'm looking for, and that's what I'm telling people, man. We live in a police state. We've got to demand that the police stand down or fight us, and that's how you approach the government. You go take their minions on first, and I don't care. I'm not talking, your city police and your sheriff, and then right on up to your state troops, and then right on up to the DHS and the FBI. I think it'd be probably better to start right at the top and tell the FBI, stand down or die. That's what I think. I mean, that's just my words. But, somewhere we got to stand up. And
well, that's why I like the early part of our conversations, and Thomas Mickett incorporated it into his plan of action, something that I've lived with since the 70s.
What?
Is that us being fully armed all the time.
Oh, yes, I know. Go lay down.
Is us being fully armed all the time, and that's the other thing too regarding like getting the militias to organize and form together. Well, yeah, it's been a tough thing for people to stand under any particular head if it's not their own head, and such as that. But if we are all fully armed all the time, when it serves our best interest to back each other up or to join or conjoin in a particular area in bigger numbers, we can do that. But the point is also that in any number everywhere, if we're always armed, we can take care of a situation that comes up. And if cops want to be abusive and the good cops aren't going to stand the bad ones down, well, then we can do it.
We need to do it. Yeah, I'm not saying we need to go in and shoot the police. I'm saying we need to get that guy by the shoulder and say, look, you're going to be held accountable for this. You're not going to get fired. You're not going to disappear. You're going to go in front of the people and explain to them why you were so damn cruel that you just killed this guy with handcuffs on. I don't care what color he is.
Right. Or we can shoot him to stop him from doing it, or we can arrest him. We can do all of that. And the other thing, too, it's like, if there's a big situation, like with what happened with the shootout in was it Waco? Oh my God, I can't believe this. But anyway,
down there with the bikers, you mean?
Yeah. They murdered those bikers. And the numbers, of course they did, and the numbers get to be large like that. Well, if every community is full of people fully armed all the time, ready to stand up for whatever occurs around their body, it's not too far before you have a whole bunch of bodies who can go stand around that kind of a situation as well. Or as it's starting to happen, make sure that it doesn't happen, especially the way it went down.
Well, it would have been a hard thing to stop whenever they pulled out their pistols and started shooting. That was lead's flying now. It's all going on. What you could have done is got into a hell of a war there. But those guys are bikers. They're not militia. I mean, I don't pretend to know what they're thinking, what their whole game was there. I ain't figured it out yet. There was two outfits there doing something that I didn't figure out, and the cops were all there. Somebody started some shit, and it looked like the cops were the only ones that succeeded. I don't know.
Well, right. Well, see, but that's the thing. For a bunch of armed citizens watching that kind of a situation, they could have looked onto that and seen that, wow, these guys aren't really causing the kind of trouble for these other guys in uniform to be taking weapons out and murdering people. And that's when a crowd of people can force a stand down. Well, or, maybe it does get bad. Maybe it does get bad, but...
Well, the Bundy Ranch was the perfect example of people standing up. They walked that line. They walked that line and pushed and pushed and pushed until they got in their vehicles and they left. And that was a perfect example. I mean, with their weapons drawn, they moved forward, and they made the phone call and said, "Hey, if we put a stop to this, there's going to be hundreds killed." And so they they won the battle. And that needs to happen every day in America.
Now you really hit something there, because there's the pattern that you see with the militia. They stood up for Mr. Bundy and his cattle and his ranch, did they not? They did a hell of a job. I mean, I was so inspired. You guys, my heart was exploding with this. screaming down the freeway trying to watch this and trying to get there, right? It's like crazy. Same thing. Although I didn't agree as much with it in Oregon, they still did the same thing. They still stood up there. And my hat's off to them for that. I wasn't 100% on board with this scenario, but to the men that stood up, damn sure did stand up. And there's the pattern. A militia will stand up for somebody. That's what they will do. And when the people need them and they call for the militia, this is what it's going to take to activate the militia, is for the people to say, we need you now. We need you. Come help us. And then they will or they won't, right? They will or they won't.
Right.
They did in Ferguson. The Oath Keepers went to Ferguson. They weren't called there. It was, maybe a shopkeeper was a little worried about getting his shit stole, but that's pretty understandable. But they weren't really called there, and I feel like a few mistakes were made, but they did go. And they went there under the same premise that they were going to protect property and people's lives. And that's what it's going to take. That pattern is going to have to repeat itself in such a situation that we're not going to go stand up and we're not going to defend the Confederate battle flag, as much as it breaks my heart. I'm a rep, and I love the flag, and that flag is part of my heritage as much as the American flag is. Not quite. I don't quite give it the same position as Old Glory, but it is right there underneath it, I'll guarantee you.
You know what? I called on my local militia group for the McKinney problem, and I had my local militia commander, Cameron Davis, basically tell us to shut up and butt out. He had it under control, and he hadn't even addressed the situation. So, see, that's part of the problem. We got a bunch of yeehaws out here that have been given responsibility and leadership that have absolutely no clue.
My history with Texas militia isn't all that shiny itself. I mean, everybody pretty much knows that. But there are some good guys down there. I mean, not all of them. But, Texas accused me of being a Fed. They told me I invaded Texas. They did a lot of things. I had a lot of problems communicating with Texas militia. And one of the reasons is most of those guys want to be a state militia. And I was running down that path until I woke up and said, I don't want the government to have their hand in a damn thing I do. And especially in my group.
Registering your militia, I told him, I said, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Why are you registering your militia with the state?
There you go.
And,
so that's a big, there's another big division that I'm not even considered a constitutional militia anymore because I won't register. I won't make that statement that everybody is welcome to join my militia. They're not. I'm very discerning who gets in my group, right? And rightfully so. You could be letting anybody in, a terrorist, infiltrator, whatever. It doesn't matter. But right now, that's the things that are going on. McKinney should have been handled a little different. I think we've wasted a lot of opportunity. I think we have plenty of chances to stand up. We just haven't done it. What we need is that one time that this person says we need another Bundy's, only we need it in New York City. We need it real close to Boston or real close to Washington, D.C. That's what we need to happen. We need somebody to stand up in Congress and say, we need the militia to get in here and save me right now. And that would work. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. How to get the militia off their ass? That's a big question. And just about, only one that everybody agrees on. We're here to protect. We're here to defend. And so it's time to one of the things I've just tried. Now I'm going to tell you guys, I work at this all the time. I just tried this because of the Supreme Court ruling saying that pastors got to give out the wedding license, and pastors are going to have to marry these guys, right? That if any pastor would stand up to this, that the militia would come and stand up for this pastor and guarantee that he would not go be arrested and not go to jail. That puts it on the militia to defend themselves. And that could grow, but that'd be reaching, But to do this in all the churches, that all the pastors that stand up and in a way you're defending Christianity there. And it was just there's a way that Floyd was just trying to get it to work. And but what I'm telling you now is what we need is another Bundy. We need a rally point. Somebody to save.
There are so many different ministers and types of ministers and justices of the peace and places, beautiful and just average, whatever. I mean, there's a full spectrum of places and a full lot of people who will marry anybody. Why is it that an issue would be forced upon someone who didn't want to do the marrying? That's my point. That's where the violation lies.
It should
right.
not be. It should not be. And I'm furious that the Supreme Courts think that they can rule over states' decisions on such matters. That was a complete subjugation of law. And listen, you guys, been a great discussion. I hate to do this, but it will cut us off 30 minutes after, and we're about at that point. We've already done the 2-hour show, well into the 30 minutes. You guys have been a great panel, and I really appreciate the fact that you jumped on it. I did this show unannounced. I decided it was time we do a live broadcast. I'm going to ask you guys to come back tomorrow if you have time. I know everybody's doing things with their family. I'll do an early show, say 1 o'clock in the afternoon or somewhere in that time frame, and we need to give some direction to get off of the social network, to put our plans into action, to start forming those, Mick, your aspiration is guerrilla teams, get busy with it. Doug, you have another aspiration, get busy with it, but we need to be able to bring it all together and make it happen. But we're not going to do it on Facebook. It's not going to happen.
Not going to happen there.
Right.
And
so you're after 1 o'clock Central Time?
Yeah.
1 o'clock Central Time. I'd like this panel to just say yes. We won't do a 2-hour show. It's the holiday weekend. But if you guys could come back at 1 o'clock, let's finish up this conversation. You guys mull it over in your minds what we can do collectively. You're all great leaders. You're all very knowledgeable. You're all motivated. You all think sensibly and have the gift of discernment, and that's what we need. And if we don't start drawing those like minds together and finding a solution, we're going to find ourselves in the middle of a revolution because other people are ready to fire. I'm just going to say that. Other people are ready to fire.
Oh, yeah, and that's the big danger, too, that you just said it right in a nutshell. A lot of people like to start this war for a lot of different reasons. And
yes.
We don't want that. We don't want those people.
No.
We don't want those people even fighting next to us. It's terrible. And we've all known that for a long time.
Do you know how much friendly fire? You know how much friendly fire is going to happen? It's going to be pathetic.
It's going to be pathetic. Yes, ma'am.
That's why they want all of these different factions fighting so that those who could never battle for the American Republic will be in the midst of the greatest battling of all.
Right. So
they'll be fighting.
Hey, well, give you got contacts with Floyd. Give Floyd my phone number so he and him can get in touch.
I will indeed.
Lay down.
Absolutely.
All right.
And also Cindy, isn't her name Cindy? Massey's wife.
Christy Massey.
Christy.
Yeah.
Okay, I told you before. Get me in touch with her. She's in Greenville. I'm on Tawakoni. We're close, and I've got a little extra money, and I can help her out. So.
All right, brother, I'll reach out to her again. I know she's been extremely busy. She usually gets right back to me, and I haven't heard from her, so I'll try to touch base with her again tomorrow. I'm going to wrap the show up because it's going to cut us off in the middle of it. Can I get you guys to please come back at 1 o'clock tomorrow, Central?
Yeah, sounds fun. Yeah.
Fantastic. I will see you then. For all my listening audience out there, thank you for listening in. For those who participated, God bless you. I'm nothing without you guys, as Bobby always states. This has been Becky Williams with Rage Against the Regime podcast, and I'll see you back here tomorrow at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. Thank you again, guys. Y'all have a blessed night. Are you there?
Yeah.
All right, fantastic. I appreciate you. You guys have a good evening, and I'll see you in the morning, or actually tomorrow afternoon. I can't even find
Good night, Becky.
All right, good night, sweetie. I can't find the outro. Couldn't find it. I could not find it. So we went without an outro. And they put so much fucking shit on my board here. Bobby, James, Casey, Massey. Look at all the shit I've got on my fucking board. It's hard for me to do my shit. And now, for whatever reason, I'm trying to end the show, and it's not ending my show. So. What is it?